Hi, my name is Ozzy Torres. Stephanie and I really thought it'd be a great time to share with you a little bit more about my history and background. And we wanted to share with you specifically how we ended up coming from a high school student working minimum wage to a career in engineering, making over six figures, and taking you to a little bit more into that story, just to share with you guys how we ended up having our own business and why we traded all that in for our own business. So just to start off, back in high school, was working minimum wage, different various jobs, but I always had like an entrepreneurial spirit. I always knew that there was something more that I wanted to do for myself. So we ended up starting several different small companies with website design, with wedding coordinating. There was always tidbits in our background that we thought that we could make into a business. So we really gave it efforts at times to try to make something happen, but it was very difficult, especially at that age, to be taken seriously. At the same time, to find the additional time in order to find a business that would be successful. High school was definitely something I felt like I had to finish, and I felt early on the pressure of going to college. With my family and with things around us. We always hear that college is the best way to get into a career and find that career that you love. And I knew I loved doing things with my hands, and I knew that there was definitely something in that would make me successful. So I didn't mind the idea of going to college and finding a career that way, the traditional way. I ended up going for engineering, electrical and controls, and I loved it. The 4 years that I was in school, I got to do a lot of cool projects. I got to invent a couple of robots. It was a lot of fun, and I do treasure those 4 years. But I would definitely say that throughout those 4 years, it was always still, am I doing the right thing? It was always like, why am I not just starting my own business? Why am I going to a career to, try to find a company that will support me and my family? So it really ended up being that the first couple years were the gen eds, the typical, classes that you kind of have to do. But it didn't seem really like I was progressing much. It took until like the third year I was able to find an internship that would allow me to work at a local mall and do some engineering work with some of the HVAC systems. And I found that internships really were the starting point of beginning a career and really driving me towards the career path that I ended up taking. So HVAC kind of became a focus, software became a focus. So throughout the last couple of months of college, the last year of college, I really ended up focusing hard on trying to develop my skills as a programmer as well as a electrical engineer, rather than really trying to do the controls aspects. I really focused hard on those two things. So after I got my internship, it wasn't a great paying internship, but it was paying, which, I was definitely happy about. I did that for several years. And after graduating college, I continued with that company in order to be their main controls engineer on staff. So I did see a pay increase at that point. We were making good money. It was stable. Honestly, it could have been something I could have done for the rest of my life. The people there were fantastic. But there was always something in me that wanted more progression, wanted that opportunity to continue to grow. And at that point, there just wasn't any growth available. And I just saw lifers, people who were there for 20, 30 years, and that's just what they did, and that's how they supported their families over that long term. And I found that to be very difficult for me to take in, after progressing for so many years and always seeking for something else to do. That pause in a career really got to me right away, and I wanted to find a company with a lot of growth. So I sought after a Fortune 50 company, a huge company, and they were actually the designers of our units. So it kind of was the right stepping stone. I saw a door there that could be open. I already had background in their systems, and I ended up going that route. And since I had my degree at that point, they gave me a shot as an application engineer. It was a very boring job, but I was with a bigger company. I was getting more money, so I thought that would be a good jump. And of course, whenever you start to picture the grass is greener on the other side, sometimes there's points in which it's not. And at that point, I realized that the decision I had made was final, and unfortunately, it could have been the wrong decision. So I was really starting to ponder what to do at that point. And I was an application engineer for about a year, and I was looking at other options in the office, and I was talking to other professionals who were there longer than I was. And I had met a sales engineer who was adamant that sales is the right way to go for a career in which you have that flexibility, and you also have the opportunity to make more than your base salary, and you don't have to wait for somebody to give you a promotion to make more money. You just got to go out there and hustle for that money. And I thought that sounded like a perfect option. It's like I love what I was doing, I just didn't love the position I was in. There was no room for growth at that position at the time, and it was really difficult to kind of maintain a good pace and a good strategy, and it was just hard to plan out my career as an application engineer. But sticking with the company, I got a promotion and I moved on to be their estimator, which is like in between an applications engineer and a sales engineer. And I was estimating the jobs that were coming in from the sales guys, and I found that to be so much more fulfilling. I enjoyed it at that point. I was really getting into the job. And I realized that I was getting into the business aspect a lot more. So I started to think maybe I should go back and get my master's in business administration. I can see how that would be useful for my career. So at that point, I started the process of getting my master's in business administration. I was making good money. I was close to six figures. It was a lot of fun. I was loving my coworkers. And then basically there was a huge shift in the company. And this is kind of the unfortunate reality of where we are. And if you work, for somebody, or any business in general, even if you're your own business owner, people leave. And when that happens, the dynamics of the office can dramatically change. And in reality, you're kind of put in a situation where the people you enjoy working with can no longer be with you, and you kind of have to adapt to the new people around you, and that's common for every place you go. But at that time, things started changing, and a lot of people around me started to leave, and I kind of longed for that same connection that I used to have. But at the same time, my mentor at the time, for that particular position, was leaving, and he gave me an opportunity to finish a lot of the work that he had started as a sales engineer. And that opened the door for me to take reign of his position without really, being there long enough to do the job. I was forced into a place in which I had to do the job of a senior engineer. So I trusted myself. The people around me kind of trusted me. So I took the opportunity and I ran with it. And I started contacting, heads of companies. I started contacting directors of schools, and really started making sales in which allowed me to gain notoriety in the company. And they promoted me to be the sales engineer for my area. And at that point, I was making way more than I ever thought I could. It was definitely above the six-figure mark, and it was a lot of fun. I got the company car, the card itself. I was able to take people out on, and it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed the responsibility. But at the same time, I realized that over the year and a half that I was doing that particular job, I saw people come and go, and I saw people come and go that I thought were good people, but unfortunately the company decided that they needed to make certain cuts. And I didn't feel like at that point I wanted to be one of those cuts. And, I kind of thought, could there be a way in which I could, earn the same amount and do things that I wanted to do? And that kind of pushed me towards focusing on developing our own company. And Stephanie at the time was starting to become a real estate agent, and she was enjoying what she was doing. And we had decided when I started the sales position that we would start to focus the growth on our own company and try to make that a reality. So towards the end of the 2 years, I had finished my master's degree, and I kind of figured that it's now or never. As I was deciding to leave the company that I was with, even though I was doing well, I kind of figured that it was in my favor to consider other options. Before I jumped into real estate, I had looked around at other companies just to make sure that I was doing the right thing. I was traveling all over the place, and they were talking about going up to Boston, then going up to Texas, and then it was a national ordeal. And I really started to think, my family is so much more important at this time. Am I really going to be able to do this for the rest of my career and travel to that extent and still find fulfillment in my life? Stephanie and I talked about it a little bit more, and we decided that it was most appropriate for me to join the company now, even though it wasn't 100% ready, but we figured we could make it 100% ready together. And so we're doing it. And honestly, guys, if you want to hear more of the details within that story, there's a lot of things I can go into, and there's a lot of points in which I can help you guys understand where we were at, or where I was at in certain aspects with my mindset, or either with the financial aspect. Because it did take a lot of planning to get to where we're at. But if you guys want to know more, just leave a comment and subscribe, and let me know specifically if you guys want to hear more about my story, my background, or if you want to hear anything about our business.